Okay, so here we have question 18 of the test 3 review. So we're looking for a point estimate of a proportion. So those are some things to pick up. P hat is the same thing as the mean, or your x over n. And so our n is this number right here, and our x would be this number. So that is what we would do for our proportion. I believe this equation is on the formula sheet. Let me check. Yeah, this one right here, sampler proportion, P equals X over N. So that's number of things that say yes or whatever over how many people you asked. So we can type that number right into here. Okay. So it's asking us, basically, it's asking us to prove that it is a random sample right there. And so it states right here in the problem that it is a random sample. And so the sample is stated to be. So when you see these questions, it's either going to be is stated to be or can be assumed to be. And it just depends on if it actually says it or not. But both of them are going to be the yes ones. So this one is our equation. This is from a past video, that this is a sample, the n times p times 1 minus p has to be greater than or equal to 10 in order to be a random sample. And so that's this equation that we'll fill in right there. And it's asking us to do that equation. And so we will do that. So our n, once again, is that big number. And then that will be times by our p, which is what we just found up here. And then we need that times by parentheses 1 minus that same p value. And that is, you type that one in right here. Let's see, what is our decimals? 3. Okay. Which is greater than or equal to 10. And the sample size, so we're looking at, it says 1,015 adults in a certain large country. Because it says a large country, we can assume that there's a lot more than 1,000 people in that country, and so it's assumed to be less than or equal to 5% of the population size. Because that's another one of the requirements in order for it to be normal, like it says that it's asking us to prove. Okay. And so now we're doing a confidence interval. Whoops. And so if we're doing a confidence interval, that means we're going to either be in t-stats, proportion stats, or variance stats. And up here we found p hat, which is a proportion, and it says population proportion right there. So since it says proportion, we will be in proportion stats. We're not given data, we're just given the summary of the data. And so these are those numbers that we plugged in order to find our p hat before. And we're having a confidence interval of 95. And so out of these two options, sorry, I'm trying to get it so you can see it. This one says probability, this one says confident, and we're talking about confidence interval, so we're going to click that confident, and it gave us a 95% one, so that's just coming right from the question itself. And then these upper and lower limits, basically what we're saying when we're finding these is that we are 95% confident that the proportion of adults is within these two. And so this proportion that we found up here should be right smack dab in the middle of the upper and lower limits. And so what that means is that if we collect a small group from the same population size, we are 95% confident that that sample mean will be within those two, that sample proportion, sorry, not the mean, finding proportion. So we'll type those in right there. What is my decimal? 3. And so more than 60% of adults, so 60% is the same thing as 0.6, and 0.6 is not within our limits, and we said that we were 95% confident. So basically, we're 5% confident that it would be outside of these limits, either below or above. And so we could say it is possible but not likely, because that confidence interval right here does not contain 0.6. So what we found originally is the proportion of people who think that televisions are a luxury and they don't need it, so not a necessity. And now they're asking us to find the percent that think it is a necessity. So either you say yes or you say no. So what we're going to do in order to find that number is we're gonna take our population, or our sample size, that we found it, and the 511 of them said, no, we don't need a television. Then the other part said that they do need a television. So we can just minus that number from our population, or our sample size. And so that is our answer for our new proportion. And so we're going to go back into here, and once again, we're finding a confidence interval. So we're going to go back to proportion stats, one sample with summary. But now our number of successes is this number that we found, just barely. And our observations stay the same. And it's 95, that's 95, compute our upper and lower bounds right there. And that is how you do question 18.